I explained in an earlier video why it was important to transfer this number into here. And you see the clock has somehow reset. I'm not sure how that happened. I didn't reload the software. Anyway, this number should be the same as this number. It corrects the clock. So I'll input 600 000 1320. I guess I should check that occasionally. I'm not sure what happened. So that should correct the clock frequency, or the frequency of the oscillator. And I'll set the frequency of the oscillator to 10 megahertz. Now this can be set in increments of 1 hertz, at least according to the instructions. In order to set the 10 megahertz output from the device, I have a 10 megahertz input to this frequency counter coming from my QRP GPS disciplined oscillator, which is set at 10 megahertz. And this 27 megahertz high at 10 is typical of this frequency counter. It's always been 27. I've never tried to zero it, although I can zero it if I remove it from the case. So let me take the output from the NWT-200 and see if the amplitude's high enough to read it on the frequency meter. Alright, so according to this, it's remember it was offset 29 hertz to begin with. This reads 24 hertz low. So I want to move it 50 hertz. So what I'm going to try to do is go back to settings, options, and I'm going to raise this from 20 to 40. So after playing around with the DDS clock setting, I settled on 5999800, and I'll say OK. And I'll go back to VFO. And you can see I'm at 29 hertz. And if I change to the PS standard, settles down at 25. So that's 3 hertz lower than it should be. So the NWT-200 is now 3 hertz higher than the standard indicated. 3 hertz is fine with me. But now I know that this is really the number, a better number than this. I've dug up some bandpass filters. Some I've identified, some I don't know what they are. For example, I have a 6.5 megahertz, and that is purportedly a Murata. I assume we have it in and out and a ground in the center, but I don't know that. And there appears to be some writing here. I can't make it out. I've got the NWT-200 and some short B and C by DuPont connector jumpers. So if this is really a 6.5 megahertz filter, plug it in like that, and connect the shield to the center pin and the center of the coax to one of the outside pins. Now if I'm going to do this twice, I'm going to turn this end for end. I'll do a single sweep again. And we can see it does have some attenuation early on, but I'm sweeping clear to 200 megahertz. So let's change this from 200 to 20. Do a sweep. So I'll take the cursor and I'll try to position it right over the peak of the filter. We can expand the box. And you see that shows that I've positioned the cursor at 6.48. Let's set the start frequency at 4 megahertz. And the stop frequency at, say, 8. And we'll do a single sweep. I have to move it over now. And so that's what it looks like. Now, I have no idea what the impedance in and out is. I'll put the cursor on it. We'll take a look at what the cursor says. And you can see I'm just going by eye, 6.54. We'll end for end this little filter in case it is sensitive to input and output. Do another single sweep. And it doesn't look any different. A 10.7 megahertz band pass filter, and that would be a Murata. I don't know what this means. It's the same form factor. It does have a red dot almost in the middle. So I won't have to move the wiring. And it's 10.7, so I'll move the high end up to say 12 megahertz. And we'll just do a sweep. So that's a much nicer. Set the cursor here. And we'll see where it's at. It's 10.697. I mean, that's as good as it gets. It looks like we could set this at, say, 9.5. Low, start the sweep at 9.5. And we can go to, we'll leave it at 12. So that's a nice curve. It looks like, let's take a look what that frequency is right there. And you see it's 10.72. So that's a pretty nice filter. So this is a 36125 megahertz. And it's 36.125 megahertz. It's an EPCOS, and it must be a SAW filter. It comes in a rectangular package with one corner cut off, 5 pins that are, and the 5 pins are configured this way. I'm going to ignore pin 3 for the time being and connect it. Let's see, where's the equivalent circuit? Here's the equivalent circuit. I'll put, this will be RF in and ground, out and ground. I've got a sweep set from 25 to 50 megahertz. And here we go. And that's a characteristic SAW filter. You can see why it's called that. And the center of the filter, I'll move the cursor, oh, I don't know, what do you want to call it here? Let's see what that is. 36.04, which could be. It has about 30 dB or 25 dB of insertion loss. But isn't that interesting? The SAW pattern. What the data sheet says. Data sheet shows something like this. It says typical insertion loss is 20 dB. That could be. I've got a 40 megahertz crystal here. I'm going to do a sweep from 39.9 megahertz to 40.1 megahertz. Now this is actually the standard crystal response. I'm not sure whether these are stray or not. And let's set the cursor, say, right here. And we'll see that is at 40.0006 or something. That it's not at the top of the peak, which is, I don't know, which is around 39.99. Nor is it at bottom, which is around 40 point, well, it's 0036, that's pretty close, but really 40 should be up here. And that's where it is. So there's some filters, including a crystal filter, or at least the characteristics of a single quartz crystal.